to our house was not a house of many rooms. There was a big rectangle, and it was two rooms, a living room and a small kitchen. And the living room was also our sleeping quarter and our eating place. And I remember when no one's there, I would set up my imaginary classroom and my little chalkboard, and I would pretend that my students are set up in rows of tables and chairs, and I would walk up and down the aisle and giving lessons for the day, math or poetry and whatnot, and I left that little girl behind.
Oh my!
The thing that I did take with me, and the only thing that I took with me, was something that my cousin had said to me. My cousin is much older than me. Our family structure was a little odd. He was more of my parents' age than my age. So he was very wise. And he told me, he looked at me and he said, "Be a good pupil." He said it in English. And at the time I was thinking, you mean people like eyeball? But then I later found out he meant student.
Yeah.
It stuck with me all these years, Gloria. Never gone away.
Well, I remember how we met, and that was in a classroom. And so I'd love to hear more, perhaps later, about that little girl that you left behind, and also your cousin's words to you, "Be a good pupil," and how that is shaping and molding you even now, Anna.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will.
So now you are transitioning with your family to America. And can you talk a little bit about what growing up in America was like for you? What challenged you? How did you adapt? Or what did you adapt from American culture to fit your own needs, Hannah?
Yes. We left Vietnam in the fall of 1994, and I was just doing a little calculation. It's 24 years almost to the month as we're talking right now. We first settled in New Hampshire, actually, so quite opposite of where we are right now. And I distinctly remember coming into the airport, and I felt very nervous and shy. Everything was so fancy and expensive. And we were taken to, and it was late at night when we landed, and we were taken to this beautiful home. And it was a home of this older woman who had volunteered her house to house and welcome immigrant families who needed a place to stay temporarily until they truly settled down. So it was a big house compared to the house that I had just described in Vietnam. It was a house of many rooms as opposed to just the one room that we had. And I remembered sitting on the couch every day. I was too new to get me started in the school system yet, but I remember sitting in the living room every day looking out and seeing this bus that's yellow, and kids of my age, younger, older, would step on or get off at the end of the day. And I was thinking, wow, I don't have to walk with my shoes or my slippers that's half broken. I actually can get on a thing that has wheels to take me to school. But then after a short while, we felt very lonely there. Despite all the support that we had, we felt lonely because there was not another Vietnamese family nearby. So after a couple of months of residing in New Hampshire, we took the Greyhound bus from the East Coast to the West Coast and moved to the Seattle area, Everett to be exact. to be closer to family friends who happened to also be my my dad's friend who served and in the war with him. And I've been here since then.
Wow, that's quite a transition, and coming across the country from yet another country. I mean, that's an amazing and a huge transition for you and your family. But it sounds like you found extended family, or at least people that you knew here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, that you can call it. We built a new village for ourselves since we've left behind our cousins and aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
They're our new aunts and uncles. They're my new cousins, my new brothers and sisters. They speak our language. They shared our food. They shared the same challenges that we do. I remember adapting to the American culture. It was fun through the way of food. For example, our dinner was never just the Vietnamese food, but then we would have burgers and pizzas and donuts, the milk. My parents, every time I tell the story, I remember my parents, and wherever I may end up with my story, it goes back to my gratitude for them. They left behind the expectations and the cultural expectations they would have had for their kids, and they allowed me to grow and integrate into the American culture and be with American kids and friends and culture. They shifted and they adapted for our sake. Yes.
Yes, and as you're talking, Hannah, I think about my own story and how much my parents sacrificed, leaving behind so much as your family did as well. Different circumstances, but very similar. I'm just sitting here thinking about the intersection. So tell us a little bit more about your gratitude and perhaps even how you decided to continue to grow, attend college. What was the driving force? What propelled you forward?
Going back to that cousin of mine who, even when we're here, still finds way to communicate with us through letters or through emails in the recent years with technology advancements. Always that message, be a good pupil. He probably also told me to be a good daughter and listen to your parents, but I don't think that stuck with me in the early years. Be a good pupil stuck with me. And that has always been, and he doesn't know this, and I haven't been back. For the last 24 years, I have not touched him and give him a hug and tell him what I remember, but be a good pupil. That is my motivation, my propeller, my force.
Hannah, what does that mean to you? Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means to you and how it lives and plays out in you?
For a young child, being a young kid, I didn't have anything to hang my hat on. I was thinking, gosh, I need to speak. I don't know how to speak English. My days, and also going back to that little girl who pretended to be a teacher with her imaginary classroom. There's a connection there between what I imagined to be and what my cousin had reminded me. It's almost as if I feel like education is the foundation of me becoming into myself and paving the life, whatever life that may be. I didn't know at that moment. I still doubt that I do. But there's this being of immigrant family, there's so many new things, brand new starts. And where do we start? I started with education. I started with school. I started with being a student because I wanted to build that knowledge base for myself. And I don't know. There's education is something for me that just resonates.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I just spoke at a university convocation yesterday in the Minneapolis area of all places, and part of my journey there with the students was to be hosted at a luncheon for multicultural students. And so we had students really literally from all over the world whose lives had been disrupted for whatever reason, one thing or another. And I know that everybody has their own story, but there were so many stories that I heard in that room, again, that intersects with yours, and the importance of education, the importance of family, the importance of all those cultural things, food and language, that shape us and make us who we are. And what an amazing journey you've had, Hannah, in terms of, leaving things behind, adapting to this new culture. And I just so appreciate you and you're sharing your journey. Earlier you talked about working in a professional environment, and I wondered if you can tell us a little bit about that. Why corporate? And I know that you work in finance, and could you tell us why finance?
Yes. Again, it all leads back to, I guess I've always walked my life with this memory and this voice in my head that says, I come from an immigrant family. I come from an immigrant family. I want to build a stable life for myself. I want to inspire my family. I have a younger brother who is 13 younger than I am. I want to be an inspiration to him. Truth be told, there are times over the past couple of decades where my family can't always be a source of inspiration. The practicality of life, of settling down financially, and being stable, and I needed that source of inspiration to, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to learn? My younger brother became a new source of inspiration for me. Working in a corporation is a way of continuing that stability, of financial stability, to support my family and myself, and to be that, continuing to be in existence and be a source of inspiration for my younger brother. And finance is, again, a decision made out of that mentality of an immigrant. I need something stable. I need something I can bring food home.
Great conversation today. Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. Thanks again, Hannah Nguyen, for being my very special guest. Now, if you missed any part of this week's broadcast, you can listen to the podcast right here on Talk Network Radio, or you can catch us in lots of other places, including iTunes, Android Alexa,